Hello and welcome to Thoughtful Little Time Bombs. If you are returning, I thank you very much for reinvesting your time in me and my little videos. And if this is your first visit, I hope you are most welcome, and I hope you will be intrigued enough to hang on and also maybe to return. So deeply grateful to you all for your attention. I've just come out the bath, hence I'm a bit flushed, and I will soon be going to a cathedral near here to listen to a choir. My cousin's in it, so I have no choice but to go. But you know, a bit of culture has to touch somebody's life eventually, and this is mine. So Thoughtful Little Time Bombs is about leaving ideas with you in the immediacy, or maybe thoughts that come back to give you aid at a future date. I believe that your unconscious is always looking for anything that will help move you ahead, that will help you realize your dreams. That's what this is all about. It's about rediscovering dreams that you had many years ago and maybe working now to achieve them. If you're like me, you have more years behind than ahead, so therefore we have to make a bit more effort in every single hour of every day to dedicate ourselves to pursuing that which we wish to achieve. But I do realize I'm now going to the dogs. I have tinnitus and I have floaters. Tinnitus is that hiss in your ear, which I don't notice most of the time, except when I stop at the door and I listen to nature, and then I'm aware of the noise. And the other one, the floaters, they're just pieces at the back of the retina. They float around and they can make you a bit paranoid. They make you a bit paranoid because in moving, and sometimes you forget they are there, and you get a movement in the periphery of your eye and you think there's somebody there. There's nobody there, but it's, well, I hope not anyway. But they add to the aging process, the colour of growing old. And also, I noticed recently that when you're among chickens murmur. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you've ever been close to chickens. They just move around your feet and they murmur. And I think I've just realised they murmur because they're talking about you. The chickens are talking about you. That is a fact. I'm convinced of it now. And as I go to pieces gradually, I now realise that even the chickens are making fun of me. Something I noticed, it was last night, the last couple of days actually. Shadow the cat, I haven't seen her for a couple of weeks. Shadow now goes down to a room at the bottom of the corridor and just stares in there. It's the office, my little office. And it just stares in there. I say, come on, food, and he'll come. And last night he was there eating food, and all of a sudden he just looked. And he didn't look away, he just carried on looking till I distracted him back. I have friends who have Romany blood, and one of them has said that she once saw an old man walking down the bottom of the corridor where the cat was looking and going around the corner. So I am going to dogs. I'm delusional, I am paranoid, and unlike the cat, who seems to thrive moving through a world of shadows, I'm getting distracted and drawn away from what I want to do by feeling a bit insecure. I don't. This is my house, and nothing's going to shift me out of here. So by nature, I'm a problem solver. I've done a lot of problem solving over the years, and I reached a point where I didn't like where I worked, and I realised that vast majority of the problems I was solving for people were problems they could have solved themselves. At least I got paid for doing it, but I realised that I was giving a lot of my efforts to helping people who should be helping themselves. Only a very small percentage of people really needed my professional skills. I wasn't a lawyer, solicitor, but I had specific skills in problem solving that helped other people just move on with their lives. And then I realised, amongst other things going on, that it was not helping me move on in my life, and I decided that instead of focusing on the problems of other people, to casual problems, the problems they can solve themselves, it was more or less time for me to focus on mine. And I think the guy who's got the best idea in all of this is the cat. The cat, and the chickens possibly. The cat certainly. The cat lives in now. Doesn't worry about what happened before, and he doesn't imagine what's going to happen in the future. He functions in the now. He's like a little soldier. What he does is he eats when he can and he sleeps when he can. A warrior, a soldier. That's what he does. And me as a human, and many people, most humans, we don't necessarily live in the now, because we live in the past or we live in the future, even while we are in the now. We spend most of our energy looking to the past with regret of things we said, things we didn't say, of things we've done or things we didn't do. And we look towards the future with trepidation, with fear. Fear of, will we have enough? Will we survive? Will we have illness? Will we have money? And the reality is that most of the problems of the future are yet to appear. They may not appear, but most of them can be addressed now, in the now. I was, many years ago, on the Underground in London, as you do. I think the carriage, they're all rickety carriages, and I think there were about 40 people in there, 50 people, I'm not sure. It was jam-packed, and it was rush hour. And I looked into the next carriage, and that was equally full. And I looked at the one behind me, and that was equally full. And something I noticed, and I noticed this in travelling in metros in other countries, is that most of the people are of an age between just under 20 up to about mid-40s. These are people still creating their lives. And there were other people, I was in that range then, and there are people older. And the difference was sharp dressing. That was one difference between people. I would have been very casual. When I dressed down, I dressed down. I was travelling through anyway. Again, going on the continent. Then I realised that each and every single person I was watching had his own individuality, their own life history. And I mentioned this before with H.P. Lovecraft, BBC contemporary version of some of the books. And in one of those books, and I've mentioned it a couple of videos back, somebody got Henry Eakley, who says to the reporter, imagine you can see all of time laid out bare before you, from beginning to end, the past, the present and the future. Imagine that. And the woman rightly says, the journalist rightly says, that would drive you mad. That would drive you insane, to see everything before it's happened, and to see in detail things in the past that you regret. Now would be futile. And I was thinking, looking at the people in the carriage, same lines, I was thinking of them as having a funnel reaching back to their birth. No wibbly wobbliness today, but just to the time of their birth and onwards, and their experiences. And I was thinking about the funnel of life and time and experience for most of those in the carriage was the young people. Would have been very dense now, between 20 and 40, your most active period in life. It would have been full, it would have been jam-packed, I imagine, compared to the rest of us. Mine would be not far after them, but now would be quiet. But if I go back a certain amount of time, 10, 15 years, then it would have been very, very busy, would have been as congested as them. And the older you are, then the events are further back. So you can imagine it, life for somebody who's older, for somebody who's middle, and for somebody who's living here now, it's there, you're in it. And I was thinking of those life experience and the past gaps. And I was thinking of my own life, how uneventful it was. I travel, I do this, that and the other, but my own real dreams I have yet to achieve, and it's something that does concern me greatly. So which is why now, as I said before, I'm not blessed enough to be smart and intelligent. Epiphanies don't happen to people as dull as me. Therefore, the only way we're going to come to some smart realization is by dint by accident of incredible hard work. And that's what I do. I work incredibly hard, about 14 hours a day. It is insane. No, it's not. It is structured, and it is my ambition to achieve things. And I realise that I could have done them far easier in the past. And at this stage in my life, it will take a bit of effort, but I'm committed to it. And like the cat in the now, I function in the now every single moment of every day as much as I possibly can. Between just before 7 in the morning, when I get up, have a cup of tea, de-zombify, go running, and then everything else reveals itself as I've decided throughout my diary for the week. So there we are. That's how I function. I do not waste time. And I mentioned it before that my day is made up of habits, and the most important habit I've developed, and I think it's one of the most important habits that we can develop in life, and that is to have a gap of time between an intent to do something and doing it. And it's something I do regularly. I have got it short. I've got it as short as possible, apart from tea and coffee, which slows it down occasionally, but it doesn't matter. The intent is there, and I act very soon after it. The reason I do it is because I have a life unlived. Like you, I have a life unlived. Things I have yet to achieve. Things of 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Things I have not been able to do something about because of responsibilities, because of illness. And now I'm a bit more focused than I was before. I've discharged all my responsibilities. I am far sharper in pursuing what I wish to do, because of determination arising from illness. I overcame an illness without realising I'd overcome it, until they pulled out the tumour and threw it to the dog in the corner of the theatre and told me 6 weeks later I was clear. So I was equally determined before, but I think I'm now more refined, so I don't waste time. And that's the important thing. When you're doing something, by all means stop and have a cup of coffee. I have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. The kettle goes on, my best mate, other than the cat. The kettle goes on more or less every half hour, and I watch what I drink so I don't make myself hyperactive on coffee and caffeine. So I drink hot chocolate, I drink tea as well. But there is a tendency to drink too much coffee. These days, I have a great habit, which is, other than moving from intent to action, is a determination not to give up. It takes courage not to give up. It's easy to give up. People say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think we've moved into a world that doesn't matter really. And the older you get, you think it doesn't matter. You know, it was never going to happen. I don't believe in that. I'm very poor these days at giving up, because, as I say, my body nearly gave up on me. So now I'm determined, in a refined way, non-wasteful way of moving ahead, because I have the life unlived, and I have the learned habit of not wasting time, and a learned habit of not giving up. And it is something I said many weeks ago. You may not have had it yet, actually. So it's something I said many weeks ago in a conversation, is that if we're brave in one part of our life, there is absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be brave in all aspects of our lives. I can only think of one simple reason why we're not, and that's something I'll talk about briefly in a short while, which is about the constant companion, constant visitor, which is the voices from the past, who's saying, maybe you shouldn't, whereas you're desperate to do it. My advice is, you know, if it's healthy, it doesn't scare the horses in the streets, then just do it. You know, I'm not a solicitor, I'm not a doctor, but things that would bring you joy and maybe even take you out of your comfort zone, I think you should engage with it. It'd be silly. I don't know what it is, so We each have our own little secret. I learned that I had, as I said, I used to climb, so therefore that takes courage. And if I have courage to do that, then I must have courage to do other things in my life. One thing that exemplifies this most for me was when I was in the Alps years ago. And three of us had gone up to do a peak. And we were going to stay up in the mountain, find a mountain hut in the Alps. And it went wrong, as it inevitably did with us. And the mountain hut was miles away, and a couple of cliffs and glaciers between us and it. You know, some idiot, not me. I accepted that. Somebody else told me they could read the map, and they were familiar with the Alps, and it turned out that they weren't. It was just noise, and it could have been deadly noise, but it wasn't. So we ended up sleeping on the side of a mountain. With all the right equipment, we didn't have anything for creating a fire, but we did have hot water in flasks, we did have food, and we did high energy and condensed milk, which you squeeze in, which is horrible, but is vital. And we sat on the ropes for a bit of insulation, and we sort of tried to sleep, but you can't, because you hear slippages all around you, and you think, that's a big slippage, I wonder if it's coming for us. As in avalanche, because I think, if I remember rightly, it's warm in the Alps. If you're in the mountains outside, it's warm. Well, it's not exceptionally cold till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then it freezes. But until it freezes, then things are moving and sliding and cascading, and it's scary. We made it through the night, and next day we decided that's it. One decided he was going to do something. We tried to argue him out of it, and he said he was going to do it, so we left him to it. We two had decided we were going home. We were going back to the campsite, and so we had to cross a glacier, and I think we were exhausted from not having rested, and we made a mistake. We were not roped up, and it was only by a miracle of accident and good throwing of ice axes that one of us fell across the glacier and managed to get himself out, not me. And then we had to climb off the glacier to get to a high point where we knew a cable car would be leaving for the last of the day at 5 o'clock. And I think it was about, it was about 2 o'clock by that time. We were so exhausted that we were climbing that mountain slope to get to the high peak, to get to the tunnel that went through the mountain to get to the cable car. We were climbing in 2 foot of snow, which is exhausting in virgin snow, and we would do 10 steps, and then the other person would take over, and then the other person would take over, and we were shattered before we were halfway up this slope. It must have been about 600 foot, but we made it. But in the end, the last 150 meters, we had to stop. Every time we had to stop. We'd do 10 and both of us would stop. Then the second person would go, we'd do 10 and stop. So it was a disaster, really, of exhaustion. Made it to the top and were lying there, and then I checked my watch, and my watch told me it was minutes or so to 5. And I got up. I haven't got a clue why. I got up. I thought, I'm going to sleep or die on this mountain. I got up and I started running with a full pack in crampons, uphill, into the tunnel, through the tunnel. The guy in the cable car was closing the door. He was shutting the door on the cable car, and I don't know how. Somebody saw me because I couldn't shout. And I collapsed on the floor of the cable car, which he opened, and I said, 1 more, 2 minutes, he'll be here. And we made it down. And that is, for me, is one of the most remarkable moments of my life, because I'd gone beyond and yet found more. And I think it took courage to do that. It would have been easy to give up, but it didn't. And that reminds me of a poem by Dylan Thomas. And it goes, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And I realised when I reread that about a year ago, how important that was to my life. And as I said, had an operation 2.5 years ago, but you've just moved beyond that, and all of a sudden it sometimes takes ages to realise what's going on. And I realised how close it was, and I realised that I should be doing something about it. Constant visitors. We tend to carry on conversations in our heads while we're lying down in bed waiting to sleep, where we're lying in the bath. We have constant visitors. These visitors can be supportive, or they can be detrimental to our positivity, to our enthusiasm, to our will to go on. Important thing to realise is that the person who is the curator of these positive or the bad thoughts is you. We gather them, we give them value. People can say something in a long distant past and they can still affect us, but we can only hold one thought at a time. So we must be careful that that thought which was injurious in the past for a different reason, that we don't bring it into the present. So we curate our constant visitor, which is that voice in the head. And as I said before, we each have a narrative. My narrative is simple. Why aren't you working? That's it for me. Why aren't you working? So again, I tend to rant about these things. I do apologise. And I tend to repeat, but the things I notice, the things I do repeat are things that are absolutely important that we know. That we develop habits that we would miss if we don't do them. That we apply ourselves with honesty. So we don't try and fool ourselves. We worked harder than we actually have. And as I said, my tummy tells me if I'm conning myself. And I trust it, and I believe in it absolutely. I acknowledge that my life could have been more active, and I acknowledge that most of my energy now is designed and applied in order to make it more active in the future. I believe that problems in the future are solved in the now, most of them. Time is against us. I keep repeating this. Time is against us. But we can make use of time, and as the Stoic philosopher says, they keep saying that there's plenty of time to achieve things in your life, as long as you don't waste time. Don't waste time, just get on with it. Get your set of habits. Be respectful of your ambitions. They were important to you once, and they should probably still be important to you now. Dream in secret, quietly. Plan quietly. And act quietly, secretly. We're not going to succeed with everything. But in those things that we don't succeed, let's fail in private. Let's fail in secret. That's the way to do it. It's less damaging than letting people realise that, oh, you didn't do that. Some people will be pleased to see you fail. So everything you do it quietly and surprise people afterwards. And as I say, I'm going to go to Tahiti, and the first anybody will know is when somebody phones me and I say, sorry, I can't get to the party, I'm in Tahiti. Anyway, that things help us move forward. Humour helps us move forward. Your constant companion should be something that helps you, shouldn't be slowing you down, shouldn't be getting in the way. So I wish you well, and I encourage you to curate your constant companion, the conversation, with good things, and acknowledge that you are far better than you probably suspect you are. You are much better. You're strong, you're confident, you're determined, and you will succeed. If not now, then in the near future. Keep working towards it. I wish you well. I wish you such happiness, and I mean it when I say that. I wish you such happiness. You take care. Bye. Hi, before you go, if you'd be kind enough to subscribe, to like, to share, and an even comment. I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you very much on behalf of myself and Shadow. He's having a kip, but I'm sure he'd be thanking you from the heart of his bottom. Have a good day. Have the best day.